interest, which reflect the shared commitment across the flyway to conserving this iconic migratory species. So today's webinar provides an opportunity to present the Steppe Eagle Action Plan, CGAP, and showcases the ongoing conservation efforts across the species range. It also serves as a valuable platform for exchange of knowledge, experiences, and good practices among range states, experts, and conservation partners. Through this discussion, we hope to strengthen collaboration and foster the coordinated action needed to secure the future of the species. The endorsement of the action plan by parties to CMS at the COP15 represent an important milestone and a collective commitment to its implementation in support of the objective of CMS and as well the goals and targets of the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So why this matter? The steppe eagle is a truly transboundary species, occurring across 62 range states and relying on a vast network of breeding, migration, stopover, and wintering habitats. Listed as an endangered on the IUCN Red List, the species continue to face significant pressure across its range, resulting in ongoing population decline. These challenges transcend national boundaries and require coordinated international action. No single country can ensure the conservation of the steppe eagle alone. Therefore, its future depends on our collective effort and shared responsibility across the entire flyway. So the Global Action Plan provides a practical and structured framework to guide conservation efforts at national, regional, and international level. It identifies the principal threats facing species and outlines priorities actions needed to address them. It also supports the alignment of policies, resources, and implementation efforts across countries and sectors. Importantly, the plan serves as a mechanism to strengthen partnership, mobilize resources, and ensure that conservation actions are coordinated, targeted, and effective. We encourage all participants today to engage actively in the discussion, share experiences, and explore opportunities for collaboration. The success of the Global Action Plan will depend not only on its adoption, but on its implementation through three areas: sustained commitments from governments to partner to wider conservation community, second, partnership, and third, actions on the ground. So let us use this opportunity to strengthen our collective efforts and advance the coordinated action needed to secure the future of the steppe eagle. So with that, I would like to thank you all once again for joining us today, and I wish you a productive and inspiring webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruba, for your inspiring words on what the importance of this action plan. So let me explain what is the webinar today, what we expect from today. Well, first of all, we will have, apart from the introduction from Ruba, we'll have an introduction about the Global Action Plan by Jenny Weston. That will be followed by national perspective from 3 key states or of the range of the steppe eagle, meaning Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, and India. And then we will do a bit of reflection on what are the next important steps. Before we dive into that, I really need to thank a number of people and organizations who has been crucial for the development of this action plan. First of all the international experts that have provided their guidance and the information free of charge voluntary contribution in terms of really providing an expertise and knowledge about this action plan. And also the encouragement they continued over the years for this. Second, the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, for the support of to the initiative. And we also want to congratulate RSPB and other partners for winning the Earthshot Prize, which for the inspiring Altin data conservation initiative, from which we managed to have resources to progress on the implementation or the development of the action plan. In particular, I want to thank once again Jenny, because she has been really not only coordinating but the driving force of this process. So if we are here today, is a lot of thanks to her, because she really did a lot of work on putting together and herding cats, let me say that. He putting together 100 of experts he has involved and engaged. And of course, I also want to thank the Kazakh government and the ICBK, the Association for the Conservation of Biodiversity in Kazakhstan, for hosting and organizing the meeting in Kazakhstan in 2025, where the experts got together to start putting together the task of the group of actions. So let me now give the floor to Jenny Weston. Jenny is the Species Recovery Program Manager International at RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, which is the BirdLife partner in the UK. As I said, she's been really the powerhouse behind this. And also, I want to thank again for her commitment and for giving explaining to us what is the action plan. Thank you again, Jenny.
Thank you, Umberto, for that great introduction. Hopefully you can all see my slides without the sort of the notes and added screen on the side. Yeah, thank you for holding this event. It's been my honour to act as coordinator and sort of lead author on the action plan for the last 18 months or so. It's been a relatively quick process, but I think we're all very proud of the results and hope it can be used as the framework moving forward. As Ruba mentioned in her introduction, the steppe eagle is a large, long-distance migratory raptor of both the Central Asian and the East African Eurasian flyways. It was once considered probably the most common large raptor, the most common eagle in the world, but sadly that's not the case anymore, and declines of over 50% have happened in the last 3 generations, which is about 45-50 years. So it's estimated there's around maybe 30,000 pairs now. The breeding stronghold is in the steppes of Kazakhstan, but also in other steppe habitats in Mongolia, China, and Russia, as well as sort of small populations elsewhere. But as you can see, it has a really wide wintering area, covering huge parts of Asia and Africa. So steppe eagle has been classified as endangered since 2015, listed on both CMS Appendix 1 and 2, and classified as Category 1 under the Raptors MAU. So the urgent need for international cooperation and the development of this action plan was first noted at COP15, with a resolution being agreed by all parties. So I'm just going to do a very brief overview of the key threats which are impacting and driving the decline of steppe eagle across their range. As I know many of you will know, electrocution is a key threat to raptors globally, and it's present throughout the range of steppe eagle. In Western Kazakhstan, surveys have found an average of 22 dead steppe eagles per 10 kilometers of electric line, but this is likely to be a significant underestimate by maybe as much as 10 or 100 times. There's been work done within the steppe eagle's range on this issue, but not specifically targeting steppe eagle hotspots. Another global threat in its many forms is poisoning. This may be secondary poisoning from rodent control, potentially of sort of plague management, And steppe eagles can also be casualties of poisoning targeting predators in human-wildlife conflict situations, particularly pertinent at congregation sites like dump sites where feral dog control is taking place. And I know we're all aware of the devastating impact of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on the Asian vulture population. This is well documented, but the potential impact and actual impact on steppe eagles are not fully understood either. So illegal and unsustainable take is present across the whole range of steppe eagle, with some shooting in the Levant, but increasing numbers of live take for the sort of pet trade or status symbol market, particularly apparent in Iraq, Egypt and Myanmar. Long-term trends in conversion of steppe habitats to agricultural land has resulted in reduced food availability and an increase in steppe fires. These effects are potentially further exacerbated and impacted by climate change, which can also result in increase in steppe fires. So this schematic here is to highlight how threats change by region. So most of the threats I've just described and kind of associated ones are present across the whole range of steppe eagle, but the exact nature and scale varies by region. So these assessments presented here and kind of formally within the action plan, we've ranked them by region according to the best available evidence, whether it's from field surveys, satellite tagged individuals where sort of outcome, sort of cause of death is known, and also from expert opinion where kind of systematic data hasn't been available. So why an action plan? I think we're all too aware how species know no borders, and it's very true for steppe eagle. There's sort of potentially 62 range states, and working along the whole flyway collaboratively with clearly agreed priorities and activities, we can work to improve the outlook for this species. International action plans provide a framework for both state and non-state stakeholders and actors across the whole range to work together to improve a species conservation status. And if they're collaboratively designed and adopted and invested in, we know these can be successful. As Umberto alluded to, in May last year, we held a workshop with experts from across the range. We all gathered together in Astana in Kazakhstan. And as well as developing the sort of the threat rankings and the conservation action framework, we also discussed and spent a lot of time working on a vision for this action plan. It's an action plan that runs for 10 years, which is approaching what we would consider one generation length for steppe eagle. And this the vision which is developed, and I'm really proud of, I think it really captures what we want to achieve, is to halt and reverse the decline of the steppe eagle by delivering innovative actions in science-based conservation and community engagement across its whole range. So 6 strategic goals have been developed to tackle each of the key threats, in addition to addressing knowledge gaps, to inform conservation action across the species range, and to ensure the support and effective implementation of the plan. These 6 goals will underpin the 49 actions necessary to tackle the main threats to the species through science-based interventions targeting key parts of the species life cycle or spatial hotspots, with long-term research, monitoring and engagement enabling the process. So the first strategic goal is considered the highest priority across the whole range, which is to reduce the impact of energy infrastructure on steppe eagles along the flyway. Secondly, reduce the impact of mortality due to the legal and illegal take and trade. Understand the drivers and pathways for unintentional poisoning and reduce their impact. Attain good quality habitats that support populations of steppe eagle across the species range. And address key knowledge gaps on steppe eagle distribution, movement and threats through increased collaboration and coordinated research to inform conservation action across their global range. And finally, although it's definitely not the least important, ensure endorsement and effective implementation of the action plan across all range states through outreach with key communities and all major stakeholders. I should also add that kind of where outreach or research is associated with the first 4 goals, those kind of actions are within the goal framework that way. So just to summarize, we have our vision for 2035, the strict strategic goals, and there's objectives within those kind of for set areas of work, and there's 49 actions which underpin them, which provided the detailed framework. You'll be very pleased to hear I'm not going to go through all 49 actions because we might be here for a little bit longer than my 15 minutes. But I just have pulled out some key actions. So looking at the first strategic goal, I've pulled out the priority actions for this theme. You can see how each action provides detail on what needs to be done, the key stakeholders, any dependencies, whether within the plan or externally, the expected timescale, short being within 1 to 2 years. And within the plan, there's also regional prioritization for each action. Here, both of these actions are considered critical, as without them, the population will continue to decline at a significant rate. A key component of tackling the threat of energy infrastructure is to identify key areas where the risks need to be mitigated, and then obviously retrofitting dangerous electricity pylons, for example, in those locations, or avoiding construction of wind farms. Just pulling out a further critical actions which highlight the need for strong evidence base to monitor the steppe eagle population and the effectiveness of the conservation interventions. As our plan vision, as per the plan vision, the innovative conservation actions will be delivered on a very strong scientific grounding. And to complete the vision is strategic goal 6, which is about how community and stakeholder engagement across the whole range is needed. And the plan and implementation of this particular need really needs to start now. So huge efforts went into development of this plan with many experts and stakeholders from across their range inputting into the workshop drafts and review. And thank you to many of you that are here today watching. We really couldn't have done it without you. But I think we all know that that was the easy part. Now we need to work together to find a resource to try and save steppe eagles. So next steps will hopefully be a working group and a coordinator and looking at the high priority actions which we need to kind of focus initially on implementing. So we'll drop the links into the chat, I'm sure, but you can follow this link to the whole action plan, which is available in English and Kazakh. Plus we have summaries in English, Arabic, Kazakh and Russian. If there's other languages which a summary would be valuable for, then please do get in touch and we can see about making it more available. But yeah, thank you to everybody's input and for your time today.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for this presentation. Very clear. Has been a very important exercise of developing the plan. But as you clearly said, we need also implementation and coordination. But we'll talk about the next step later on. I'm now with the pleasure to introduce to you Ruslan Urazaliev, which is a scientific fellow at the Association of the Conservation of Biodiversity of Kazakhstan. And as we all know, Kazakhstan hosts the most important breeding population of the species, really the core of the distribution of the species. And he will be telling us about what conservation work is ongoing in Kazakhstan. Thank you, Ruslan.
Hi, do you hear me well? Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, as Umberto already introduced me, so I'm a scientific fellow at the Association for the Conservation of Biodiversity of Kazakhstan, and today I will talk a little bit about situation with the steppe eagle conservation in our country and what already we are doing in this frame. So first, let me just remind everybody that, yeah, since Kazakhstan holds the majority of the world population, almost more than 80% of the world breeding population of the steppe eagle, we, of course, recognize our special responsibility for the conservation of this species. And so we strongly linked to this species, not like zoogeographically, but also cultural, in cultural way. So, and another reason to, you know, to be responsible and is the reason that this species actually depicted on our national flag. So the first step in this direction, in the conservation of the steppe eagle, was I would say the most official step was by the signing the raptor MOU during the COP15 in Samarkand in Uzbekistan 2 years ago. And so it was like an official start and official, you know, like a recognition of the our conservation, let's say, our story of the conservation of this species. So also let me just briefly highlight the key systematic measures that Kazakhstan is implementing at the policy level. So we approved our national biodiversity strategy action plan for 2026 and 2035. So it's our Kazakhstan national biodiversity strategy action plan, the same like a time period for the species action plan. And I would say that most of this activities that already mentioned in species action plan, they're also coming in the parallel with our strategy, biodiversity strategy. So in our environmental codes, there are strict requirements for ensuring the protection of migratory routes, breeding sites, and areas of congregations. And we have a special law on wildlife, which was actually updated just a couple of days ago, and where we have like a special requirements for the power lines to make them safer for birds. So there are some like official systematic conservation measures in our policy, and coming to like activities that we've already done and what we're actually doing in our country. So it's worth to mention that steppe, so especially here in our country, there are some threats that quite like a high level, let's say high level threats for the breeding population. As soon as this species is ground nesting, so steppe fires is quite a big issue for them, and habitat loss. So we have quite now strong lobby in agriculture, which so we share the same land, and there are strategy of agricultural development, and in some areas we see, you know, this like converting steppe into croplands and so on, and you know the active grazing happening in some areas, so which cause habitat loss, and electrocution, of course, is a main problem for not only on the breeding grounds but along the flyway as well and wintering grounds. So we just to make sure that we're trying to change the situation. So we had a pilot project on artificial, this like a nest breeding platforms for the steppe eagle. So as you can see here, it's there's a metal construction which elevated, and so even after the first after the same season, so we set them in summer, and the next breeding season a couple of breeding platforms were occupied by steppe eagles, so which shows quite a good result, and we are planning to continue this work, especially in the key breeding sites. So another part of our work is about studying their movements. So yeah, as everybody of so you all know that there's impossible to protect species, to conserve species without protecting their habitat. And yeah, as soon as they don't recognize any political borders, so we have to work together to make their flyway safe and their wintering safe as well. So so far we tagged, so I mean ACBK tagged in the frame of our projects, we tagged 15 eagles, and here's just one of the maps that showed the migration, and they use two flyways, as Jenny already mentioned, this Afro-Eurasian flyway and Central Asian flyway, and it really helps us to coordinate our work with partners along the flyway and wintering grounds. So we're also we're planning to continue this work, and actually one of our field teams, so we'll start, I think it already started, the journey to one of the breeding sites in western Kazakhstan to put some more tags on eagles. So again, and quite big like a chunk of the work is related to work with community, and we're quite active in our work with power line companies. So we visited them, so explained them why they need to care about these safe power lines, that it's not only about eagles protection, it's also it's also about the sustainability of their work actually. And of course, to do so we need strong evidence, and we're improving our data collection. So because all our recommendations and all our activities are based on strong scientific data and scientific evidences. Coming to public awareness and education, so we published last year we published the book. It's a story about steppe eagle, so from the birth till the like a adult age, and which tells the story of their like a not tough but not easy life. We try to show all these threats along the migration and threats on the breeding sites and so on, and it is a story with a happy end. And we published in two languages, in Kazakh and Russian, and spread among like schools, universities, and so on. So, and yeah, my colleagues already mentioned that this action plan was the start of this action plan actually was done in Kazakhstan, in Astana last year. So when we hold the international like a working group, and so we still support the international partnership, and we're trying to act actively in this direction. So yeah, this is a short like an introduction to our work and what we're doing here in Kazakhstan. So thank you for your attention. So I think I'm on time.
Thank you very much, Ruslan, for this great information also about the new wildlife legislation and the fact that will ensure that the power lines will be safer for wildlife. This is a very important issue because, of course, as we said, the electrocution is a major threat for steppe eagle, but in fact is the most important direct killer of large birds, and that has been proven by satellite tagging. So the work also you are doing in satellite tagging birds in different parts of the country is absolutely crucial to map and understand the significance of different direct mortality factors like electrocution and others. So thank you very much for that. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you, although everybody knows him probably, Mohamed Shobrak, which is a member of the board of directors of the National Center for Wildlife of Saudi Arabia, a member of the Raptors MOU Tech Advisory Group, and the chair of the Iowa Technical Committee. So, and he will be again telling us about the conservation efforts and research ongoing in Saudi Arabia, which is a country who has become, in the last few years, we realize, particularly important as not only a staging area, but also a wintering area for the species. Mohamed, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. I will start also to add to what Umberto says. I'm the consultant at the National Center for Wildlife, which is an agency who's caring about wildlife in Saudi Arabia. So I will start sharing my presentation, and I hope to be in time. Sorry, just I think I make a mistake. Okay, is it clear?
He is not in presentation mode, but we can see the presentation. Oh, now it is, yeah.
Okay, so today I'm going to mention about the conservation effort in Saudi Arabia and how Saudi Arabia is really an important area for the steppe eagle. So my presentation will be taking I will speak about four things. One is the importance of the steppe eagle. I think it's very important to mention, and Rob already informed that how is this species is important as a connecting ecological connectivity, which is very, very important, and it has 62 countries, which is really large, large distribution, and then I will give an introductory about this steppe eagle activity in the kingdom and the threats and the conservation measure which will be planned from now. So as I said, that the species has really given ecosystem services. We know that in the breeding ground that the steppe eagle feed more in rodents, and in Arabia it's really in the feeding in organic waste, and we have some calculation about the number from one area with the number of steppe eagle. In Africa, there is a paper was published in the Butler, but in the same time mentioning about the steppe eagle feeding in the termites. So these guys, they change their food and they really help in each area that it's is going from reducing rodents, mammals to effect which is in agriculture, the other in Arabian Peninsula, reduce the organic waste, and then in Africa with the termites and its effect in the agriculture. As all we know is that the tracking data, and I would like really to thank all the colleagues who's really give me some information about the tracking that has been done around different countries about the steppe eagle. So the tracking data showed that Saudi Arabia is showing an important passage territory, and in the same time it's an a wintering area during the migration period. So What has been done in Saudi is started quite long time, although that in the beginning it was strong, then there are other things that has been done, it's protected areas. But anyway, in 1991, this is the first count which has happened in one of the IBA in the carbon. And the number of birds that's being counted is around 2,000 individual. And also in this bottleneck in 2004, we continue in 2005. In October, we, as you've seen, that there is number is declining, and it's almost like 85% declining. So during the count, that we found that it's around between, the majority is happening of moving, or when they are going, and this bottleneck is during the October. And also monitoring some of the congregation site along the flyway. In November 2019, there is one count from one area that there is a 6,000 individuals. Steppe eagle was there, and in 2023, another count by the NCW, and it's calculated around 4,000. However, in 2024 and 25, the number is really reduced, and it's only being counted as 500 individual, and almost 3% is only the juveniles, which is really alarming things. And I would like to thank Matthias Blumer, who gave this information for me to present it here. On the other hand, in autumn 2022, there are some count in the IBA, which is a new IBA. It's been issued as an IBA in 2023 in the northern of Saudi Arabia, in the Barja. They counted to 2,900, but after that, in the next year, the number is declining. They calculated around, with the same effort, it's around between 860 to 1,000. Anyway, we also started from last year to start to see the monitoring of one side of, the Steppe eagle. Now the Steppe eagle, mostly you find them in Saudi around the dump site, and it's really with some areas with the larger number. So anyway, we have one area near Taif where we are walking, and my colleagues, who's a young biologist who's following this, and what we found that it's that they start coming in almost in September, and then they will continue increase in the number, especially from December to January, and decline. And the last one was moved from the areas in the 6th of April, which is, I think, is quite late. Also, we have, this is first time it's happened in Saudi, that we started collaboration between the National Center for Wildlife and Saudi Bird Society and National Center for Waste and Management, who give all the areas where the location for the waste area, and being visited by volunteers, which is provided their names and support from the Saudi Bird Society, and also the private sector, who really support these volunteers to be visiting this area. The total number is participated in this is 72, and coverage of 91 site. The total number of raptors that has been counted in that area is around 15,000. The Steppe eagle, almost more than a half, so 53% of that is a Steppe eagle. And you can see there are some, the maximum could reach up to more 1,000 in one area. Anyway, as related to the threats, is also similar than other areas. Is the electrocution, especially this near the dump site. Mostly some of these power line, especially the medium voltages, it has really a big issue. The high voltage power line is really useful for the bird to use it as a vantage point or breaching, roosting and that in these areas. But the power line, the medium power line, is a big issue for that. And I would like the opportunity to, first of all, to congratulate the Bulgarian society for winning the AU. And I think we had a big support from them in Saudi with the Egyptian vulture related to the bubble line, because they are using the similar area for the Steppe eagle, using the similar area for Egyptian vulture. So what we did, we did the old hotspot that we had been identified, and now there is being insulated, and in the same time there are some area with the it's still in the way. Now we're going to do it. We have an MOU with the electric company for this year. The issue of poisoning is there also. Is we found that there is a possibility also from non-steroid. The poisoning we did not recognize a large number, but we could be possible that there is also the issue of the the issue of the diclofenac or other related medicine, which is related drugs that has the big issue. The illegal killing is very low. It's related to in some area, with the falcons, falconry during the trapping. That sometimes that there is some competition, between the falcons and of course, this is what they think, not deeply the steppe, but other species. It's not the time to speak about it. And the trade, which is very, very low, very low number we've seen during that time. Anyway, it's the last one, as I said, is the trade. It's not a big issue, but it still exists. And therefore, one of the important conservation measures done in Saudi, which is established, the legislation, which is really was very important. We have 3 executive regulation, which is the hunting regulation and executive regulation, and the trade and the protected area, which is really played a role in this. And related to the legislation, as I said, that it's the hunting of wildlife, all the species is written is protected in Saudi Arabia. So in the law, they are protected, and they really have a high fine for, if somebody is, capturing or killing one of the, it will have a really large fine. I don't have it with me, but anyway, it's threatened species is really taken consideration. Also, the establishment of the protected area. So, you can see here how is the increase of the number of the terrestrial and the marine protected area in Saudi Arabia. We have a plan to have from in 2020 to 30% terrestrial and 30% marine. So we have a network, and also new IBA, which is I mentioned earlier, that in 2023 that there are 2 important areas for the steppe eagle. Part of the flyway is being considered as inside protected area in the northern of Saudi Arabia. Also, we try to improve our knowledge and try to support, that identify the area where is the hotspot for the electrocution, and also we will continue to do the monitoring of the wintering population in selected area. We will try to coordinate the research gap with all the stakeholders around, in royal protected areas and others in the kingdom, and also with the regionally and other global organization. Monitoring the movement, we will plan, inshallah, to do some tracking also for some of the area, and also monitoring the site, because I think the site is really very important to monitor in the coming times. And as I said, we work with the Ministry of Energy to try to continue to find the hotspot, which is already, we had their report from, different spots that we can to visit and to try to insulate these dangerous power line. Also, exchange lesson learned from raising awareness, and especially in the during the the migratory birthdays and others on all to try to give the awareness of the program. And I think this year, when we started with the Saudi Bear Society, this issue, more people are talking now about the steppe eagle and the importance of the steppe eagle. And the thing, what we look to the next step in the future, the way that how is this dump site is really, I don't know how is the sustainability for it. And this is probably something we have to think all in the future, how it looks in the future, because there will be a developing of these areas, more kind of reducing the impact of possible disease or something. Thank you very much. And I would like first to thank the MOU office and coordinating office for giving me the opportunity. Also, Jenny, she's done a lot of job and running after us to get the information, and all the people who I mentioned listed here who helped me to present this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for a very informative overview of what is happening in Saudi Arabia, which is a very important country, but also a lot of things are happening in the last few years, which is very exciting to see how things are changing in terms of new protected areas, new conservation, and also this work between the National Center for Wildlife and NGOs. I think it's something breaking land and back in new areas in Saudi, which is very important. And what I want to add, because you mentioned protected areas, is the action plan itself has a list of important sites for steppe eagle, which are not officially yet listed as the raptor important areas in the raptor MOU and therefore under CMS, but definitely is a starting point to improve the list of internationally important raptor sites, raptor areas identified as CMS through the raptor MOU. Also very important is when you work on electrocution, and I think this is valid for Saudi, everywhere in fact, is also to look at what is the impact on decline micro interruption, because that is really the way we can talk with energy infrastructures, because the electrocution is not only a biodiversity issue, is also a problem for the companies, and we need to find a common ground. And this would be, if we can prove that after retrofitting, they have less problem with the macro interruption, which damage their building and equipment and provide a better service to the client, then we have a common ground in which you can really work together, solving two different problems, but doing only one action, which is the way forward. So thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, they came to us, and they, after the first discussion with them, they came to us with all the side they have an issue with it, with electrocution, which is coming from birth, and they give us all the location, and this is something. And in the same time, we already signed an MOU with them related to that. So, and I think we are going in the right track now, and so we will see what's happening in the future.
Thank you, Mohammed. Keep us posted, because your experience there with the company actually coming to ask you and sharing the information is extremely useful to export and to expand this approach in other countries. Last but not least, actually, is Suresh Kumar, which is a long-term raptor researcher and keen supporter of the raptor MOU. He is based at the Wildlife Institute for India, and he is the Institute's nodal officer for the World Natural Heritage Management and Training for Asia and the Pacific region, a center established under the auspices of the UNESCO. And again, he will tell us what is going on in India, which is also a very important place for the steppe eagle, for the one that follow the Central Asian flyway. Suresh, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Omerto, and it's always wonderful to be connected through the Raptors MOU and understand what's going on with raptors. And I think at this point of time, it's the steppe eagle. It is definitely a species that was in our focus. And thanks to Jenny Weston for having brought out that wonderful document. So yes, India is a very important region for the steppe eagle. And let me share, I have a small presentation And I'm going to share the screen. I hope there's not much problem. Yes. I suppose it is visible now. Sorry.
Yes, it's visible. Thank you. Not anymore. If you go, yeah, and then you put the presentations mode. Yes, perfect.
Yes, right. You can see the presentation now. Okay. Yes, so as indicated, I will be presenting about the conservation efforts for the steppe eagle in India. Currently, there is no any specific activity focusing on this particular species, but I can share with you. I will be sharing with you today about a series of activities that's underway. So I work for the Wildlife Institute of India, which is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change. So some of the activities that I'm going to be talking about here is basically a plan that the government of India is proposing to initiate, and it is timely that this global action plan has come out. And with this, I think we are able to take forward some of the actions that is proposed to be implemented. So so I would like to first start off with this particular image of this fantastic flat grassland, which is basically part of the arid plains of Western India. Much of the arid plain region in this western part of India would have been like this, but unfortunately that's not the case like everywhere else. There are pockets of it which are extremely important for migratory wintering raptors. So this, we would call it as the subtropical steppe habitat, and very, very important. There are still certain pockets that still harbor a good number of these raptors coming here. So this is more like a control system with minimal human influences, and see what the steppe eagles do here. But at the same time, there are other areas where the steppe eagles do use highly human modified landscape. So the western part of India, the arid plains there, are very important migratory destinations. So a large number of the steppe eagles are definitely coming in from the different parts of the temperate steppe, either coming in from the eastern end of the Himalayan region and coming down to this particular area. So extremely important. There are a couple of states which I'm going to be highlighting where there's a lot of these birds that are wintering. Quite likely some populations do arrive here and thereafter very likely migrating off into, further towards Middle East. So this area could also be acting as a major stopover or on passage. So we know very little about these things, but definitely this particular area is the focal area for the steppe eagles here in India. So relatively one of the most commonest, wintering large raptors in India. And so migration patterns and localized declines are being documented, but there is no standardized range-wide, census of these birds over the last decade. So there's some bit of information that is there, but much of it is scattered. So counts of wintering steppe eagles in select protected areas and carcass dumping sites, especially in the state of Rajasthan, the Western Indian state of Rajasthan, are available. But these are again, the efforts are irregular and non-systematic. So in order to understand population trends, a clear baselines are currently not available. So at a larger pan-India scale, there have been information based on citizen science data that the steppe eagle populations are declining. And, it kind of reflects what we've all been talking about, that this particular species is of conservation focus because their populations have declined quite drastically. So if you look at the distribution and the phenology of where these birds occur at what time of the year, so like it's a winter visitor. So you do see them in the Himalayan region or the foothills along the Himalayas. You do see them all along the Himalayan axis or the northern Indian as well as in the eastern Indian region. I sometimes wonder whether this has always been the case, because why I would think like that is that some of these areas have also become very important urban centers. And if there are urban centers in all over, then there are definitely garbage dumping sites. And from my experience of having watched these birds across these areas, I invariably notice them in these garbage dumps. So this may not have been the case in the past. So there would be definitely certain pockets where these birds would have regularly visited, but over time, I do see that they stop over, spend a lot more time in the winter months in these areas rather than moving further down into the south or into the western part of India. So the two major regions or states that are of focus in India is the state of Rajasthan, that's this part of India, and then Gujarat. And both of these areas do have what I had earlier presented, pockets of subtropical steppe habitat where these birds do winter. Apart from that, there is a very large number of livestock in these areas. So there's a lot of cattle carcasses that becomes available during the winter months. It's available through the year, but the carcasses are dumping sites are the areas where the steppe eagles and other large raptors, primarily occur in. And so there are these pockets of these sites where these birds occur. And invariably in recent times, the steppe eagle seem to have completely adapted to a lifestyle of feeding at cattle carcass dumping sites. And in certain pockets in Gujarat, there are populations which, and there are no carcass dumping sites around there. And it appears that they have taken to feeding a lot on bandicoot rats in some of these subtropical steppe habitats. So we still need to gather a lot more information on what they're feeding. Now, I'm bringing this up primarily because one seems to be a natural site where potentially the eagles are safe feeding on natural prey that is available. And whereas in the areas where they are dependent on cattle carcasses, we often wonder what are the kind of effects that the toxic drugs like NSAIDs have had on vultures. What is it that is to do with the eagles? How safe are they from these drugs? So we have very little information on that. So this is the kind of landscape Rajasthan where you have the desert plains, and then there are certain hill sections. And these are also areas where you have very important protected areas. Primarily, the flagship species there is tigers. And there are natural prey carcasses available, but we have very little information on how much are these steppe eagle dependent on that. Quite likely less as compared to the food that is available to them outside of these areas. And across this very large area, there are pockets where the steppe eagles use. So in terms of assessing their populations or creating baselines, it's relatively easier if we target some of these sites. So the priority threats here is poisoning. We don't know at this point of time whether rodenticides and pesticides that are being used in agricultural fields are having an effect on these birds. And like I mentioned earlier, the carcass dumping sites could pose threats to these birds, especially that they have had large-scale impacts on vultures. So the veterinary drugs used there in livestock may actually be affecting these birds too. Electrocution and collision with power line infrastructure. There has been a certain amount of effort in this particular region with the focus on the Great Indian Bustard. So there's a lot of mitigatory measures being currently taken on how best to safeguard the bustards from these power lines. But the steppe eagles, while they use those landscapes, but they're also spread out much on the outside. So it's super challenging as to understand what's going on with the electrocution related issues. But having found that the steppe eagles are primarily using these carcass dumping sites, then the power lines in and around these carcass dumping sites could be of major focus, and certain actions to figure how we can mitigate the threats caused to this. Habitat degradation resulting in the non-availability of food at wintering sites is definitely a concern. And many of these carcass dumping sites are now having a lot of feral dogs, and these pose a lot of challenge to any of these raptors. So there must be some form of competition, definitely with the feral dogs and what they're getting to forage on. So yes, and this is the image of one particular carcass dumping site. You will see hundreds of steppe eagles using such areas and readily taking to the carcass that's available there. But they do have to compete with other raptors and the feral dogs in these landscapes. The power line infrastructure, less spoken about when it comes to the steppe eagle, because mostly these are outside of protected areas. And now with the focus on the steppe eagle, there again, yes, this will become one of the important. So at this point of time, Rajasthan, the Western Indian state, which otherwise is known as the raptor capital of India, is the focal state for initiating actions for the steppe eagle. So there is a large project that has come up, which will focus on, the raptor hotspot mapping that will include the steppe eagle there. Understanding these carcass dumping sites and how the raptor assemblages are there and how the carcasses are made available to these birds. Then there is also a satellite telemetry study that's being planned to understand how these raptors in their wintering grounds, how often or where are they actually moving between these dumping sites? Are they entirely resident in these areas? Information on that. Genetic connectedness is again one of the aspects in this large comprehensive study that's being planned. And of course, yes, stakeholders engagement, workshop and consultations are definitely part of the plans. So the other aspect of it is that the steppe eagle has been part of India's national initiative for the Central Asian Flyway. So while there is at a state level or at a site level, there are actions that is being planned. And this is naturally going to complement the efforts being undertaken across the species range. So yes, at this point of time, no actions have yet been initiated, but definitely this is something that is in the plan. And yes, so with that, thank you very much. And this is a very large project, 3-year project that's coming up, most likely by the winter of this year. This will be initiated in the Western Indian state. Apart from that, the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change Government of India has also having other initiatives wherein the focus is on assessing populations of threatened species, including birds, pan-India, across India. And one such initiative was completed recently that focused on vultures. And the steppe eagles are already part of that scheme of things, where it would be the next major raptor species that is going to be assessed across India, primarily looking at where they are wintering and what their populations are. So these are data sets that will give us some baselines, some systematically gathered information that will help us in understanding population trends and will form an important baseline for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suresh. This is very important and interesting to see how many, in particular, this large project you just mentioned to look at what are the status and the threats to the species and how to address it is particularly important. I'm very, very pleased to see this happening just as the action plan is being approved and endorsed by the CMS parties. So this is very, very exciting. So thank you very much for your work and your continued support to the Raptor MOU. Your presence definitely is a consistent presence and a support to the implementation of the Raptor MOU and the conservation of raptors in general. Yeah, poisoning and electrocution are, across the range, very important threats. And let me wrap up briefly. First of all, I want to point to two messages that are in the meeting chat. One from Till Dietrich mentioning and inviting everybody to join the monitoring of migrating steppe eagle in West Kazakhstan, which is an important area for the species, as Ruslan has shown with their tracks, but also a very important area because there is a lot of energy infrastructure development in the area, and we need much more data to understand and to mitigate any potential impact. The second thing I want to remind is what Jenny has posted as well, the fact that has been established the Steppe Eagle Flyway Consortium to bring together experts and to share the information about the satellite tag birds and any kind of information to map and really assess what are the threats affecting the species. We have a lot of information, but we really don't have a perfect understanding of what are the individual impact in different regions of terms of threats. So this consortium will really put together a lot of information. I'm sure the outcomes from the research in India will inform also this consortium to address the best the threats. But in terms of coordination from the Raptor MOU, the action plan, developing the action plan is in a way the easy part. You know, we have been able over the years of developing action plan and working with experts and transforming the experience and the knowledge of the experts into documents that are of policy relevance. But then the trick part is really comes from having a document and having then an impact on the ground in terms of conservation. And the experience tells us that really action plans that are then implemented in the ground are those that have a coordinator, have really a person who has part-time or full-time, whatever, the capacity and the time and the task to gather together the information, to track the activities, engage with the stakeholders, and so on. And so where the Raptor MOU is still seeking for support from the parties and signatories to have the opportunity to hire a person, even part-time, to do this kind of work. Of course, the work is also making, and this has been happening and mentioned by the presenters about legislation. We need proper legislation. We are not sure that the legislation across the geographic range of the species is sufficient to provide safe havens for these species. And then we need, of course, to implement projects at a small level, because a major problem covering 62 countries, that is not going to happen. We need really to break the action plan in biteable size that are interesting for any kind of different funder, but also that engage countries at a national level or groups of countries to address specific threats. So really we need the help of the signatories and of course of the researchers to put together projects and fundraise for them. We are trying now in Raptor MOU to have an intern soon, hopefully, that will be able to put together and support the eventual coordinator, looking at what are the ongoing projects, putting together a knowledge base regarding monitoring protocols, regarding creating subset of the action plan indicating for different stakeholders what are the activities we would expect from the different stakeholders, which can be national government, can be an electricity company, veterinarian agencies, and so on, to work and implement in the action plan, because we are talking about 60 plus activities and we need to progress in many of those. So there is a lot of things that needs to be done, and we will need a commitment from all the signatories and all the stakeholders to really save this bird, which is going down very fast. It's still reasonably numerous, but the decline also, as Suresh has shown, or the data from from Saudi indicate, there is a serious decline and we need to stop it, and stop it very, very quickly. It's much better to address the threats than having very expensive reintroduction or renaturalization programs, or what they call it. So if you have any question, this is the moment to put it on the chat. Otherwise, this webinar has been registered, will be available, the registration, in a few days' time, thanks to finalizing and editing on the website. And so we will also put the contact details of the speaker. So if you want to reach specific, the speaker itself will be particularly interesting. I see here, and I will then shut up. And again, Till Dietrich mentioning the fact that the medicine given to livestock in Kazakhstan is also something that is probably affecting the survival of the species. And that is what we think in India is probably the main threats. But we have very little evidence. We have some evidence, in fact, one paper in which indicates that the steppe eagle are sensitive to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, but we don't really have the level of knowledge and information we have now for vultures. So we definitely need to work more on that. And probably not only, or maybe there are other things than non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs that are used or at sub-critical levels, so reducing the survival or the productivity, or are other products that we haven't identified yet. Remember, for the vultures, it took 7 years to understand what was the problem, and with 2 or 3 different groups completely focused on the issue. So we have a lot of work to do, but we know some of the threats, for electrocution for sure, persecution in certain areas. We definitely need to address now, but there is a lot of research that needs to be done. If somebody wants to make another comment, otherwise I would close it here. We also thank you, Peter Nieru, for your offer of sharing your information for data in Kenya, because in fact, in Africa, we have very little information. So this is very interesting. I understand that Shobrax was to the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you, Umberto. I just follow up with you regarding the diclofenac, and I think there are many countries would like to get benefit from the experience in the Southwest Asia related to the diclofenac, because I think this is an issue and it's already approved with some publication related that steppe eagle has already been affected by this. But how is serious in many parts. And I think also there is an issue of others, the poisoning from other chemicals, that we need to have to look, especially the insecticides and the rodenticide. And I think these are the other issue. But many of the countries that in the areas, where they wintering they have issue of lacking how to identify, this kind of threats. It's from analysis and things. So I think we probably in the future it's to get benefit from how the experience from the Southwest Asia related to that issue. Thank you very much.
Umberto, you're muted.
I was muted. Apologies. Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed, for this. And that is really an important point that we need to keep going. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you in particular for our speakers for once again sharing your experience and your time on your busy schedules to share with the wide audience. We had almost 70 participants, which is very important, with a very range of countries represented. So thank you very much, everybody. All the information will be on the website very soon. Bye. Have a good evening, morning, and afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you around. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.